Come on. What's happened, everybody? It's Saturday, so that means it's time for the half hour of horror with me, Aaron McLean, and my co-host as usual. Oh, hey, it's Chase. What's happening, buddy?
How are you doing today, Aaron? I'm doing great. I am excited for today's show. We
Yeah,
have an
man.
awesome guest, an awesome topic, a
Yeah, it's gonna be
great
freaky.
documentary, which if anyone watching hadn't watched it yet, Aaron and I both watched it this week. Highly recommend. So let's get to it.
Yes, star, creator, documentarian, uh, the cursed man himself, Liam Legue. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. How you feeling, buddy?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for being here. And yeah, I'm feeling surprisingly pretty good, given what I went through on this rather wild journey of a documentary.
To let our fans know, the film is called A Cursed Man. It is a documentary where Liam goes around the world jet setting to see if he can get a curse placed on him. He talks to magic practitioners, brujos, witches, tantric professionals. It is wild to say the least. I didn't know what to expect when I popped this on. Um, I genuinely gave me the willies at certain points where I was like, no, don't do that. Why are you doing? You tempted fate. You played with the dark side. You answer a lot of these questions in the documentary, so I encourage everybody to watch it. But let's ask some of the obvious. What possesses somebody to go in search of these dark forces? And you ask yourself this question. It is part of the documentary, but go ahead and for the audience, let them know a little bit about why you went on this journey.
Right, right. Good phrase of words there as well. What possesses someone to do this, right? I don't think I was possessed beforehand.
No.
um, no, so I mean, I've just had this huge fascination with this crossover of subject of spirituality and belief in the supernatural and the power of the mind and psychology, like what happens. And so, is people who believe in the supernatural, is it all just in your mind? And on the other hand, is there something out there? I mean, we've religion and spirituality has been a part of human history forever, and people's convictions and belief in that is very, very strong. And so then maybe there must be something into that, right? Or is it just the power of mind? So I've been fascinated by this crossover for so long. And so I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool to make a film about magic, trying to find out, is magic real in some way? Um,
Now,
and yeah.
I was going to say before you started this documentary, when you were researching the topic before you filmed it, how would you consider yourself, like, would you say you would kind of like more kind of skeptic about it first, or would you say like, I'm not sure, but I'm open to the idea, or were you just kind of like, nah, this isn't real?
Yeah. It's fascinating. I grew up with, my parents sent me to like a Sunday school Christian church, I think when I was very, very young. And very young, I went, I don't really believe in any of this. So, and so my parents were like, cool, don't go back. We just offering that up to you. And so, and growing up in the UK, like churches are a part of tradition, not necessarily a big part of your life. It's kind of a traditional thing. So, we're around churches and stuff. And so, I had that idea, but didn't believe in anything. Oh, certainly not religious. Wouldn't consider myself religious now. And so we went, trying to find. I was kind of interested in this world, I guess. And so, yeah, there's such iconography in religious text and books and stuff that you kind of think, wow, is there anything in any of that? So, I wouldn't say I believe in any of that stuff, but then I got really fascinated into the world of telekinesis and parapsychology and stuff. What's the power of the mind? That kind of grabbed my attention because I was like, well, yeah, this there could be something in this. There's a lot of history and research in this. So then I
Yeah,
thought,
the
yeah, how do we
ESP and
cross that?
stuff is so interesting. You had that supernatural book that you dug
Mm.
up. that was me as a kid. I loved, I had the ESP cards, and I love, aliens and cryptozoology, and this stuff is always very fascinating. And that resonated with me, and the fact that you were like, well, let's go find out, let's go see what's out there is so fascinating. And there's something that every single one of these practitioners said, and it's the interconnectivity of us all, and the idea that we're all connected somehow, and those energies can interact with us regardless of whether it's spiritual, a physiological thing, a psychosomatic thing. They say it's kind of all the same. And that was the fascinating thing to me, is like, when you meet with some of these people, they're like, it doesn't really matter if it's real magic or not. You will be affected by it if you are looking to be affected by it. And that was something that's pretty interesting. It's food for thought for sure.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that I probably was a little dismissive of that going into it, because I still felt like I did believe going into it that I'm open-minded to this world. There may be something into it. But in reality, I feel like I've got a strong will, a strong mind, a strong grasp of my own sense of self. I don't think any of this stuff will really affect me. It's probably just in your mind. I don't really think I'm going to do any damage to myself. That changed.
Yeah. And again, I guess I'm going to cut right to this chase. Did you break yourself down with this experiment, or did magic affect you?
Yeah, I mean, I was affected by this experience. So, notably, I'm not saying magic affected me. I'm saying I was affected, because
Yeah.
I think that's still up for discussion. Is it magic? Is it psychology? Is it a combination of the two? I think to say that this stuff is all in your mind, on one hand, is partly true. On the other hand, I think that discounts the potential power of your mind, or our minds, and what we might be capable of, or even connected to. And so it may be in the mind, but the mind might be universally connected, in which case now we're talking about magic,
Yeah.
right? That's the old word for what people in the quantum mechanics world are like touching on, this weird spooky action that's going on out there. And so so yeah, to say it's in the mind is one thing. So yeah, I wasn't expecting to be so affected by it, and I was absolutely feeling some effects.
Now, one thing that I noticed watching the film, it was like towards the beginning, especially when you went to New Orleans, talked to the voodoo priest, you talked to had the hoodoo priest put the hex on you. And I noticed that for the first part of the film, you're like, yeah, I still feel fine. I'm just having some nightmares. And I noticed it was like once when you went to India, then it was like when you went to the Satanic temple in Mexico, that's when really it started kind of getting more intense. And you're like, yeah, I'm having these more intense nightmares. Of course, the incident that happened while you were on your mountain bike activity,
you got wrecked, dude.
Yeah.
I noticed it started affecting you more mentally. Now, was there any point at the beginning, especially when beginning of the film, when you were talking to the witch father and witch mother at the beginning of the film, and then you went to New Orleans, talked to the voodoo priest who was like, I'm not doing this on you and you should not do it? Was there any point where you were starting to become skeptical, like, maybe I shouldn't do this, or were you just like, I'm just going to go through with it?
Right. Well, there's two pressures on a filmmaker, right? There's the one pressure of I've got to get this done. Like I've found some money to go and make this film. I've told people I've got a crew with me. You've got this the momentum's already taking you somewhere, right? So as I'm meeting people, I'm thinking, I don't know how much I believe in this. Suddenly, those warnings, when Prince Tayamaka literally tells me off in the film for even asking for this, I start to think, am I really messing with something here? But the momentum's carrying me forward. I kind of need to do the next thing. And so I'm kind of not really thinking about it at that point. To be honest, I kind of turned off that part of my brain that said, is this risky? Now, when we met with Sen Elias, who had a really different approach to his spiritual practice, he thought that, yeah, we do test the boundaries and the limits of their practice. And so he thought, if you want to do this, I'm down to let you go on this spiritual journey, and it's on you.
They both, when you were in Louisiana, they both made some of the best points. And Ty Emeka, he called you out in a way that I thought was very smart, and I love that you kept it in the film, because you're like, honestly, I didn't think about that. He goes, the privilege of somebody to be say like, well, curse me when I have to live through curses every day. I thought that was such an insightful thing, and the way you handled it in the documentary was really important to keep in there and to explore that, like, you know, in a world of things that go a good way or go a bad way, like, we don't all have that same experience. And I thought that was a really insightful thing. And then when you go to the hoodoo practitioner, and he says, this is the bargain you're making for the knowledge, you know, and that is a dark bargain. And I was like, that is such an interesting approach to all of this. And yeah, in a lot of the movies we're going to talk about here in a minute, it is that dark bargain. It is that handshake with the devil, the Faustian pact. And I thought that those were such fascinating moments. And then you go to, you know, India and Mexico, and you know, you see a more exotic approach to magic, and it's, you know, it's a fascinating documentary, and for something that I think could easily be turned into sort of a cheap thrills experience, I thought you handled it by then bringing in a scientific approach to it to see what, like, you know, what would your body do in these reactions? What kind of lights, what kind of photons would it be putting out? It's all very fascinating. Very, very well done, man. I have to give you a hats off to that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, well, I mean, it really is a unique film. I think the thing that I'm most proud of in this film was the hardest thing, and it's not me actually getting curses put on me. It was actually finding people who practice magic who were prepared to actually show me that. I mean, to actually go on camera, because, you know, they don't know. Filmmakers come along and ridicule them, make fun of them, and make these hokey shows all the time, and to build that trust was huge, and it took a lot of me. The interesting thing making this film was we didn't know who we were speaking to when we were going into most of these locations. I reached out to Sen Elias, and he was like, yeah, come and let's have a chat. You know, like, it wasn't guaranteed. We didn't know they would be on camera and do these things. I had to present my story to them and say, I'm an honest seeker of what's on the other side of this potential spiritual realm, and that honesty gained me that access, and that was incredibly hard to get, and it came through just trying to be a good person and saying, hey, I know this sounds crazy, but I am just I'm genuinely curious. I just genuinely want to know.
There's an amazing book that I read, and it's called The Witch of Green Street. And in the 1930s, right after World War I, the whole world was searching for certain answers, because there are millions of young men who are dead now, and their parents are asking questions. And Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the writer of Sherlock Holmes, he started finding mediums who said they could talk to his son. And he was a huge proponent of American and British spiritualism. Then comes to America, he makes friends with a famous magician. We could say Houdini, probably the most famous musician of all time. And Houdini goes, okay, I'm interested. Let's go find out. And a lot of times it's depicted as sort of a malicious thing. He would go to mediums and then tear down the curtain and be like, look at the man behind the... Houdini didn't do that. He would go, he would experience, and he'd be like, great performance, but I know how that trick was done. And he comes across the Witch of Green Street, and it's the one medium he could never prove how she did the trick or if it was real. And I think that you approached it in the way that I think Houdini was doing, which is like, I genuinely want to know, not because I want to prove you as fake, but because I want to know if it is real. I want to find it in its purest form and not as a trick. And I think that there's a purity to that once you show that, the magic practitioners were willing to be a part of the documentary.
Yeah, I think so. I think that really came across. I think they realized that it was a genuine seeker, and I'd done a huge amount of research. in my life generally, I actually have that book also, and I
Yeah.
have, yeah, it's great. And I've read all about the history of Aleister Crowley, Madame Blavatsky, and all of these characters in this world, right? Who all these seekers, as they're called, like those that the seekers trying to find out what's on the other side. So I've had this like lifelong interest in this world, fascinated by it. So when I went in and I spoke to people and I mentioned these things I'd read, you could see the moment they're like, okay, he's actually interested. This isn't just a hokey TV crew. And I think that's what got me the access. And as I said, I'm really proud that I think this is some of the most authentic magical practice in a documentary that's ever been captured. I don't know how much else is like this.
It certainly wasn't like Ghost Hunters or any of that crap
Yeah,
where
right.
it wasn't your typical History Channel like we're gonna see ghosts, because I don't think nobody is proclaiming. How do I put this? They're not saying it's real. It's as real as you need it to be. It's as real as you want it to be. But it's in that space. Neil deGrasse Tyson calls it the God of the gaps, and it's like in that space of the unknown. That truth is what you discover, and I think that there's something. I think that all religion sort of does. Like traditional religions proclaim truth in the Bible, in the deities, but these spaces I think leave open those questions that let the person experience them decide what's real. And I think I think there's power in that. And the two witches that you speak to at the beginning of the film say, that is where the power is. We don't have to go through somebody else. We find it ourselves. And you went on that
Yeah.
journey, man.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's fascinating. I mean, I definitely think that a lot of the witches, in a way, the witches of old world would have been like our therapists, right? I saw a huge amount of crossover, and I'm not saying you choose witchcraft over therapy if you need it, but not saying that, but I'm saying there's a lot of what they do in their intention, practicing words, the words we tell ourselves. These things are actually a big crossover in therapy, So there's this whole world of controlling our own minds and stuff. But I do think also, to a degree, it gets somewhat bigger and more interconnected than that as well. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, and it's not every day you go out and make a pact with Satan and and hope to see the other side of it.
Yeah, man, that
Now,
cave was creepy.
now, were there any like? Because again, you came across this very respectful to everyone you would talk to, had interviews with. Were there anyone that you had kind of approached that were like even though you were respectful, like absolutely not, I don't want to deal with this? Because I know, like in the Wiccan community, like hex and curses and stuff are like a big no. Like that's like
Right.
do not do that at any for anything.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, like I said, I think I won people over with my sort of honest seeking approach. But the witches we first met in the film that are based here in California, were the tradition witches. When I went to see Griffin and Carrie there, they were like, "Don't do this," and it's in the film. Like, why would you do this? Don't.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they also bring like some comedic relief because they tell it how it is. They're like, "What are you thinking?" And that's really fun. But interestingly, when I first met them, they said, well, we'll show you a spell working, but we wouldn't show you like our temple ritual or any of our rituals, because we just wouldn't do that. We wouldn't want to show that on camera. But over the sort of period of nearly a year making this film, I stayed in touch with them. Like Griffin would text me, he's like, "Hey, how you doing? You're not still doing this curse thing, are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I kind of did." And so we stayed in touch, and he's such a wonderful character. And eventually I went back to him and said, "Hey, I know you told me not to do this. I didn't think I would need this, but I feel like I'm in trouble. Can you help me out?" And without giving away too much, like I do go back to them sort of hat in hand and like, "Hey, I was dumb."
In all Ouija movies, you got to say goodbye, right? Like you have to, or they stay with you. And I think it does come full circle in a way that is fulfilling in a way. It's closure at least. And your lovely partner who backed you in all of this is hats off to her as well, because we all I work in film, and my wife is supportive of my crazy endeavors, and I don't know what she would do if I said this. Hey, guess what we're doing next week? Just amazing that you get so much support for that. So hats off to
Oh,
her.
absolutely, it's huge. She really supports me, and I don't know if you guys know, but my previous film, I went to Russia to investigate a story called the Dyatlov Pass incident, about 9 missing hikers that died. I actually went on a 10-day snow expedition to the Ural Mountains to research this subject,
Oh
and
man,
that was the whole thing. So my wife is kind of like, oh, what's next?
yeah. Oh,
So yeah, she knows that I'm into this, like, I'm bringing it back to horror films, right? So I love horror movies, but I'm a documentary filmmaker, but so I try and find the horror stories that are real in the world, and I'm like, how do I make a documentary about that? What would a documentary look like on this type of,
fascinating.
the concept of a cursed man is, what would happen if a man seeks a curse on himself to find out if magic's real? That sounds like the logline for a horror movie, but that was the documentary pitch. So that was kind of like where I want to take films, that crossover of the movies I love and the stories that I know how to tell.
That's awesome. So you say you're a horror movie fan. What
Yeah.
Before we get into the genre specific of the satanic films and cursed films, what is your like one of your favorite horror films? One that really, or either one that started you off when you saw it as a kid, you're like, yeah, that's awesome. I love horror now. Like what is your introduction into the genre?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably no surprise that my favorite horror film of all time is The Exorcist, and I know a lot of people grab that movie. It's kind of like, a go-to, right? But I have a story with it as well, in the sense that in the UK, The Exorcist was actually banned for about 15 years,
Yeah.
and I managed to get a VHS pirated copy off of this dodgy guy that lived in our neighborhood, and I watched it on my own when I was about 12 years old, and it
Yeah.
scared the hell out of me. I mean, I thought I'd invited Satan into my life at that point. It's like, it must be something real to it, right? If it's been banned by the government, and so if you think that was one of like my early moments. Ghostbusters was probably before that, but The Exorcist
Yes.
was right. And then you see how I ended up making this film,
My my
A
my
Cursed Man.
my proton pack on the wall and my whole
Oh,
my
dude,
trap right
amazing,
next to me. I
dude, amazing.
loved Ghostbusters as a kid. I watched the
Mhm.
cartoon show, but that moment in the first movie, scene opens, what card am I holding up? What card am I? And I was like hooked on that. And my parents got me a set of ESP cards and I play with them.
Right.
And so it's like that crossing of the paranormal psychology and then movies like The Exorcist were like, heck yeah.
Yeah, and that crossover, that again fascinating to me, was love that whole world of ESP. Those cards, the ESP cards, are actually called Zener cards, and
Yep.
they were created at the Rhine Institute, which is where I go in the film. So I got to totally nerd out and go to the parapsychology research center, and play with these cards and do some experiments there. So dude, that was the day I smiled the hardest. I was
That's
just my total nerd out day.
I loved it because you're talking to these guys and they're actual scientists. They're real science guys. And the guy is like, do you need help? Seriously, do you want
Yeah,
some help? I can help you. You're like, he's like, yeah,
yeah.
he really talked to you about it. That's awesome, man. Yeah, obviously we love Exorcist here. We love all this, but let's start diving into the genre specific. When we're talking about curses, when we're talking about satanic movies and films, we're gonna build a list like we always do. And Chase, I'm gonna let you kick this off because you always have a big stack of DVDs sitting right off screen.
Not
Not
today,
today?
but not today. But one I do actually have on Blu-ray right there. Actually, Aaron, you and I a couple months ago got to talk with an actress who got to work on the set of this, who actually was working on the set of this film, Abby Cobb.
Yeah.
Drag Me to Hell.
Oh, yes. This is a great one. I mean, Sam Raimi just knocking it out of the park. 2009's Drag Me to Hell. Good choice, man. Great place to start because deals with curses and, of course, some crazy possession. And one of my favorite subgenres of subgenres called splatstick, which is gore and comedy and gore coming together in a beautiful union. Liam, how you feel about Drag Me to Hell? Have you seen this one?
Oh, dude, I love that film. It's a great movie. And I recently just watched a film called Rosario at the cinema that just came out. And
Mm-hmm.
it's got that Drag Me to Hell vibes. It's got
Amazing.
that kind of, yeah, vibe. So I kind of enjoyed it, but, Drag Me to Hell was on another level. Sam Raimi just knows how to like play with this concept of, you know, the crazy stuff and the fun element and the shock, and it's like it's the roller coaster ride, right? It really is.
Yeah, and a great curse. Like this is a fantastic curse. Um, one of the ones that I saw as a kid, and it was like one of those ones where you watch with your parents, and then you're like, "Oh, I wish my parents weren't here. Otherwise, I'd like this movie more." It's a Stephen King adaptation, but a great curse. Thinner. It's a movie that isn't the best Stephen King adaptation. I don't think this is anybody's top list of like their favorite films of all time. But Thinner freaked me out because this guy runs somebody over and then gets cursed thinner, and then he just keeps he's a portly man. He keeps getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier, and it is it's a freaky one. And then he tries to make up for the curse, but he can't find the old lady, and I don't know. I really liked it. This is 1996. Tom Holland directed it. Of course, Tom Holland, who did Child's Play and Fright Night, did Thinner as well. And so it has that vibe and that flair, and worth checking out if you're in a curse fix. Either of you guys seen this one?
I believe I might have seen it, but I've read the book. Like I'm a huge Stephen King fan,
Yeah.
so it was one of his novellas, I think. And I've actually been going back and rereading a whole bunch of his stuff, and he gets better and better, and it's really interesting. As I get older, I just see more and more depth. I think as an adult versus when I was a kid reading this stuff,
Yep.
I'm reading like the characters that he has in his stories. I mean, he's just such a legend. Yeah, it's my big hopes connection. My wife said to me, "Which director would you love to have watched your film?" And I said, "It probably wouldn't be a director. I just love to know if Stephen King watched my film. He's like my inspiration." So yeah.
That's cool.
So
My roommate in college had a bunch of like Stephen King books framed, signed. And I was like, that's cool. And he's like,
wow.
yeah, it is cool, right? And I was like, yeah, neat, neat, neat. One day I come home and Stephen King is sitting in my living room watching baseball. I went to school in Boston. Stephen
What?
King, huge Red Sox fan. And he's like, yeah, Stephen King's my uncle, but I didn't want to tell you. And
No
so
way.
I'm like, and he's like, yeah, leave him alone. But I was like, no,
Dude.
Stephen King's sitting in my So I go and talk to him for a few minutes, and we talk baseball, which I made a fool of myself because I know nothing. But of course, it's like, well, what's your favorite movie? And he goes, American Pie. And I was like, thank you. At the time, his favorite movie was
Amazing.
American Pie. But yeah, it was incredible. Like one of those moments where you just thought your head was going to explode. But yeah, Stephen King's in your
Wow.
living room watching baseball. Yes, as Graveyard Grifter brought up, yes, while he's driving his car, he and his wife are up to something that causes a distraction that causes this accident. We'll leave it at that. You guys can watch the
Can
movie.
imagine.
It's the reason why I wish my parents weren't there while I saw this movie.
Awkward moment.
Yeah, you're just like,
Yeah.
oh God, thanks. Yeah, weird. So yeah,
Right.
that was a good one. So yeah, I met Stephen King, and it was funny.
Yeah.
Liam, what's a good movie that you would add to a great satanic panic curse list?
Yeah. So a little less curse, maybe biblical curse. And like I'm going old school again. I'm going back to the beginning. Look, The Omen is my next on my
Yeah,
top films of all time.
one of the
It's
best.
such a great movie. I mean, the fact that they play it for real, that's the thing I love about those movies is they're playing this kind of seriousness to it. It feels like maybe this could be real. And you
Yep.
got the talent of like Gregory Peck leading this film. It's such a great movie. And I realized my wife hadn't watched it for like maybe not before. She might tell me off. Maybe she just hadn't watched it for a long time. So we rented it again recently and rewatched it, and it still holds up. Such an incredible movie, one of my all-time favorites.
The graveyard scene is terrifying. I mean,
Right.
just on top of everything, like it's creepy. It's creepy. You got this creepy kid. It's all for you, Damien. The movie just builds and builds and builds. And by the time they get to the graveyard and the dogs show up, like that just sends it over the top for me, and I love it in a way that a movie. And like with the First Omen, sort of connecting it all together and doing a decent job of that. I just love that movie still holds up and still is in the zeitgeist of horror movies. I love that it's still in the conversation up there with The Exorcist. Fantastic.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Huge film.
Now, have you seen the prequel that came out last year, The First Omen?
Yeah, yeah. So I saw it. I really enjoyed it. Like you said, I think they did a really great job. I think it's like it was a solid, enjoyable thing. Now, this is the thing that I sometimes wonder about is that once you've seen a bunch of really good, once you've really been terrified by a genre of films, can it really scare you? Can you get those scares back? And it's really hard. I think you get desensitized to it. But there are some films that get there, and I'll mention one recent that's more recent in a moment. Someone else's turn.
It is true though. You are right. Like when we've all Chase and I we've been to the end of the rainbow, and you're like, is there anything left for us? And there's movies that are like, well, that's crafted well, and I appreciate it, but very rarely do you get the willies. And for me, it's always moments. Maybe not the whole movie, but when I saw the Silent Hill film, there's a moment in that movie that genuinely got me, and it's when the lights go out and the guy with the barbed wire crawls out of the toilet stall, and that freaked me out in a way that was genuine. Not the whole movie, but just that moment. And I was like, good on them. They crafted it well enough that you heard the sound, and then he crawls around the corner, and I was like, no. Right. And it gets you. And I was like, good. I love it when a movie can get there. The movie I want to bring up is a 1995 Christmas film called Day of the Beast. It is a Spanish film, but it is so fun. It's a comedy, but it's full of they're trying to stop a Roman Catholic priest is trying to stop the he's trying to stop the birth of the Antichrist. And in the myth that he uncovers, the sort of curse that he uncovers, is he has to commit as many sins as possible to overshadow the energy of the Antichrist coming on that day. And basically him and a punk rocker go on this crazy tear-ass trip through just doing as much evil things as possible to try and counteract it. And it's hysterical. It's dark. It's got curses. It's got the Antichrist. It's a fantastic sort of, I mean, it's hysterical, but it is fun and a good horror movie. Highly recommend anybody who likes Christmas horror, which I do, and is looking for this sort of religious cult fused satanic panic stuff.
Well, I have not heard of that one, so that's going on my list for sure.
It's really fun. Yeah. It's on Shudder. So
okay, cool, great.
Say check that out. Chase, what do you got?
Aaron, I know you're probably gonna laugh because I bring him up every episode, just about every episode we've done.
Yeah.
Rob Zombie's The Lords of Salem.
Why not, man? Why not? Yeah. That comes up in our cult episode, our witches episode. I
think I bring up a Rob Zombie film at least each episode.
You love it, man. And this is one that I can get behind. I really do like Lords of Salem. I think it's a good creepy witch one. You got some curses going on. You got some devil stuff. Why is this one your favorite? Let them know again.
Okay. Wait, Liam, have you seen this one?
I have. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I think the whole premise of it is really neat. You have Sherry Moon Zombie playing the descendant of one of the people who started the Salem witch trials, who initiated the executions and the burnings at the stake. The witches during the witches Salem trial, it's like, hey, because you're doing this, we're going to put a curse on your bloodline. And the curse falls down on her. She's seeing these visions, and it turns out she's the one who's going to bring back the witch coven that were executed by her late grandfather. And I just feel like the atmosphere, the sense of dread, just really the visuals of the film are very creepy and very well done. And I would probably argue this is probably, I would say, behind Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses, probably Rob Zombie's best done film. then you got a great cast of horror icons like Dee Wallace, Barbara Crampton. Just overall a great film.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a movie as well that grabs, it just gives you that tone. I think you just said that tone, that creepy feeling, that ickiness, like almost it's like yeah, it does that really well. I think Rob Zombie's really good. He's really, I know his movies are intuitive on that. You know, some people just have it, right? Some people, because so many people try and copy that. He's definitely got people try and copy that type of look and feel, and it's hollow, it's empty, but somehow he manages to pull it off. And yeah, classic.
It's because he has such an appreciation for the pulp and for the sort of like 50 supernatural monster movies. Like he brings just all of this tapestry of everything that his music was about, his zombie persona was about, and it's authentic. So it's like it doesn't matter what he does. There's a purity to that authentic movie that he puts into it that makes it authentic. It's and I know he's a controversial director, but you can't deny that he puts all of his heart into it, and that's worth it.
It's one of those, you get a lot of directors who try to emulate that style, that kind of old grindhouse kind of B film, exploitation film kind of style, and it just feels so forced and fake. I would say, like, really, with Rob Zombie and Damien Leone are like the two where they do replicate that style, and it just feels so natural. Like, it doesn't feel forced on. It works with the film and it works alongside with the story, as opposed to, oh, I want to make this old school exploitation film, let's work a story around that. Like, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, that's it. I think you hit the nail on the head. That authenticity makes it work where so many others copy it and just don't. They just fall flat. So
Totally so what film were you going to drop on us? You said you had one that was more modern, but fits the bill.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So this one's kind of like, you wouldn't think it's so if you haven't seen the film, and I won't give it away, you wouldn't think that this falls under the curses satanic thing, and that's Wreck, the original Spanish Wreck. Because it has a twist. So it's not giving anything away. It's a zombie infection movie. That all takes place in one location. It's incredibly well done as a found footage movie. Like,
one of the best, arguably.
One of the best. Yeah. And I think if you can find it, it's really hard though. If you can find it, you have to watch it in the original Spanish language to get the emotion and the tone. Do not watch the Americanized language version of it, because you miss the emotion, right? But it's so hard to find it out here. I had it on my British DVD, and then I can't play it out here right now and stuff. So anyway, I've been struggling to find it, but
there it is.
There you go. You have it. Amazing. It's one of my all-time. That's a film that genuinely freaked me out. It manages to do something that's genuinely freaky, and without giving anything away, it has a twist on this infection zombie movie that is in our world of satanic, cursed, biblical scariness. And so that, to me, when that happened, I was like, I'm all in on this now. Like, it's ticked all of the boxes.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love this movie. It has, when we've talked about in our found footage episode, is one of the things that drives me nuts in found footage is when they can't justify why they're filming anymore. You're like, any normal person would turn off the camera. As a documentary filmmaker, there's times to have B-rolling and there's times to turn it off. And when you watch a found footage horror film, there's so many times you're like, turn the camera off and run, stop filming. And that compulsion in this film, they justify it in a way that feels real when they're using the night vision of the camera to see in the dark. Was like such a good use of this. And it is, again, one of the best found footage films and a phenomenal zombie movie. And I need to rewatch it now because I don't remember what the tie-in to the curse, and the magic is. But I'm assuming it's something in the attic that was going down that caused this. That's my guess. And I'm excited to check it out. That's great film. So I'm glad it's on the list. That's a really good choice.
Awesome. Yeah.
Aaron, I do agree with you. Again, I'm also the same with Aaron. It's been a minute since I watched the film, even though I do own it. Like, I need to go back and see what that curse tie-in is. But again, like Aaron, I know I've talked to you about it, like, and I know we have a lot of found footage fans who watch us, and sorry guys. um, I do not really care for found footage horror films because especially around it was like 2009 to 2015, it was like every major studio were making their horror films found footage, and it wasn't because like, oh, we have a story that justifies it. It was just,
Right.
oh, well, found footage
Blair
makes
Witch
a lot
did
of
great.
money.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's,
that was
and
it.
it's yeah, and
Right.
Paranormal Activity, and it's really cheap to make. So no matter what, we're gonna make a profit. Where I feel like Wreck, the Blair Witch Project, and The Sacrament are some horror films that justify its existence
Yeah.
because, you know, like The Sacrament was, and same with the Blair Witch Project, it was documentary filmmakers
Yeah.
that were
Right.
trying to make a documentary. Wreck, it's a news story, and then it turns out when it's going down, all the lights shut off. They're using the camera as for the night vision feature
Yeah.
on the camera.
Yeah,
Don't take
really smart.
don't take my idea, but has there ever been like just a found footage rom-com? Is found footage really only a horror genre? Like there is that one Chronicle, which is like sort of a superhero, but it becomes a horror
Yeah.
movie. But like nobody does found footage like just a romance or like a found footage like normal film, like a non-genre film. It's always horror. I mean, and I guess it started in horror with like Cannibal Holocaust or something like that. But like,
Right.
you know, the idea that you found this tape or this reel of film and what's on there is cursed or evil or bad. I mean, Ringu, both of
Yeah.
those films, cursed.
Yeah.
You found the tape and you popped
Mhm.
it in to see what's on there, and the found footage is curses you literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, I think people need to expand on the found footage. Let's tarnish other genres with found footage.
That's right. Just people filming themselves swiping right or whatever, you know. I mean, again, that's probably going to turn into a horror movie pretty quick, right?
Right?
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know in the comedy genre we have gotten mockumentaries, but it's
True.
Yeah.
But since I mentioned The Ring and the original Ringu are both phenomenal curses, really fun, right?
Dude, yeah, that was going to be on my list as well. I mean, The Ring, the
Oh,
original Ring,
sorry.
such a great movie. So good.
Have you seen both the Japanese version and the American version? They're both fantastic, actually. But so it's hard when you ask like which one's better. But I think they're both
Yeah.
really interesting.
I'm pretty sure I've watched the American one. I've watched the original a couple of times. And yeah, I think I've watched who was in the Americanized one? Was that?
Naomi Watts.
That's right. Yeah. I think I saw it, but I don't know. When I remember the film, I remember the Japanese version. So I guess I don't know if it stuck with me or not.
I mean, I think it is one of those, depends on which one you saw first. And I didn't even know of an original's existence. But
Right.
when I saw The Ring in 2002, I was a freshman in college, and I had never seen an audience react this way, like being in the movie theater and having everybody in the movie theater like recoil in fear and freak out. And I was like, what a communal moment of terror. So
Right.
cool.
And really, The Ring, especially the Naomi Watts one, is a very important film for people around my generation because I'm 35. I was 13 when it came out. So for a lot of people in my generation, that was our gateway to horror. It was one of the films that kind of helped shape my love for horror. So yeah, I think if you talk to a lot of people around my generation, that like they'll say, "Oh yeah, the American one with Naomi Watts."
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, and you know that the first impact that you have on a movie has, you know, especially in that younger era. Like I was saying, when I watched The Exorcist when I was like 11 or 12 or whatever. I mean that shaped my interest in horror films for the rest of my life. I think if there isn't this kind of satanic connection, this kind of curse connection, then it doesn't ring as, you know, it doesn't resonate with me in kind of the same way. So I think that one really set me off in that way. So I think, I don't know if I'm jumping a turn, but to kind of add into that, I think the most modern, the most recent film that I think is in the same level some will disagree, but the same level of The Exorcist and The Omen for me is Hereditary.
Mm.
I think is probably the best horror film in this kind of world in recent years. I think that's like it's this modern classic. I think The Exorcist, The Omen, Hereditary. You can put those ones together, and they have that quality of storytelling and characters that it's more so much more than just a horror film with scares. That's not what it is. And so I think that's just up there and one of my all-time tops, sort of in this world. Not quite. Well, it is. It's a family curse, generational curse. Yeah.
Hmm. I mean, it is dealing with sort of the paganism, the hail payment of it all, and that is fascinating and creepy and terrifying. And I saw this movie I saw it in the theater, and by the time we get to the end and Toni Collette's sawing her head off, the credits roll, the lights come up, and I go, and I had realized that I had like stopped breathing, like I had forgotten to take a breath in the last 20 minutes of this movie. And I'm looking around because I went by myself, and it's like, did anybody else just see this amazing piece of cinema? And the guy next to me is like, well, that sucked. And he got up and walked out. And you're just like, are you? And to realize that it is a very controversial film. Some people are like,
it's that A24. It's that A24 effect.
Right.
A lot of A24s. Not so much now because I know they're trying to go to more mainstream, general audience friendly stuff, but like their earlier stuff, like Hereditary, Midsommar, a lot of it was just so divisive because again, it depends on what you got out of it, what you understood from it. There's people who are like this, like again, like I love Hereditary. I think it's brilliant, but there's people out there who's like, oh, it's just pretentious. It's all over the place. Like, it's like no, you don't understand it. Like,
it's just
good.
It's grief wrapped in a horror film. It made me feel things. I hate that. Like that's what it is people who don't have I don't want to call it, maybe it is an emotional maturity. Let's just start there. People who aren't in tune with certain emotions, and this movie tries to elicit family drama, and somebody who maybe hasn't come to terms with their own family drama, their own family sort of grief. And if they haven't dealt with that yet, that movie is just they just immediately emotionally shut down, and that movie doesn't affect them at all. It's like water off a duck. And then they're like, but like, how could you not? My other the other show that I do, my podcasting partner is like, yeah, the movie did nothing for me. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
So good.
Sometimes people get, they hear the hype and then you go in expecting something, some hype, and then it kills the movie for you. So, I try and watch this. If I hear something that sounds great coming out, I try and not pay attention to what people are saying. I try and not watch any more trailers. I stop the trailer halfway through because, they're only going to put all the best bits right at the very end and stuff. So I try and not do that just because I want that more original experience. And it's hard. Some people, one film, I went to the movies last night. One film that everyone's hyping right now is 28 years later, and I went to see it last night, and people are saying it's a masterpiece, and I'm going to say it's a masterpiece. I think it's an incredible movie. Nice. I am so stoked. I woke up, my wife and I are still talking about it. It's incredible. Danny Boyle I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but Danny Boyle knocked it out of the park. I think it's an amazing film. Incredible. But again, like there's so much hype to it. And now I've said that, some people might be going into it and be like, your expectations, so yeah, it's easy to get carried away and tarnish a film before you even seen it.
Well, I mean, and that ties into exactly what you experience with the curses. Is like, if people are hyping it up or telling you it's going to be real, you're either going to be more susceptible to that or be more resistant to that, depending on your personality, and I think movies are a great barometer for that. Like The Witch is one that I love, and would put on a list as like in this vein of magic and all that, but like it blew me away, and people are like, nothing happens till the end. It's like, did we watch the same movie?
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, it comes down to your level of just accepting, because a film like that builds an emotional presence and, like an oppression on you as you're watching it. Not a lot's happening all the way through it, and you got to get through the language of that film too. And so,
Mhm.
you've got to be patient with a film. Like, it's not. Some people want, the 150 kills per movie or whatever, and they want that constant roller coaster hit. Some films are more about building that presence. And you go back to, the Omen and The Exorcist. I mean, it's there's so much tension building throughout all of this. It doesn't have to keep being scene after scene after scene. And so I think that some people can appreciate that type of film, and some people just, I don't know, maybe the ADHD world that we're in right now, we need that constant hit. and,
Yeah.
I think it,
and yeah.
and I think it also goes back to what y'all said about what, your emotional maturity and kind of what your like emotions that you are willing to express. Cause another one that was like that for me was Midsommar, which is a very divisive film, which I watched that when it came out in 2019. And if you would have asked me that, I was like, oh, I don't understand what the hype was for. It was so overrated. But I went and back and rewatched it last year. And over the past few years since its release, like I've lost a family member I was really close to. I lost a longtime family friend who was a good fan of the family before I was born. And it was just rewatching it after experience all of that and just kind of seeing what Florence Pugh was going through, like with her grief of losing her. It was just like, oh, like I get it now. Like,
Yeah.
I totally
Right.
understand.
It
Yeah.
builds.
And I think it's always worth going back and checking out films. If you didn't land with you the first time, go back and check it out. Very very quick aside, not in this world at all, but probably one of my most favorite films of all time is Gattaca, a sci-fi film. I don't know if that rings a bell. I don't know if you guys have seen
I
that.
know what you're
Well,
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. One of my all-time favorite films. But when I first watched that, I went to the cinema to see that. I'm getting old, and I saw it when I was like 15, and I hated it because I was expecting a sci-fi action movie, like, I don't know, something really loads more action, but it's this moody, atmospheric film. I then watched it when it was on TV one night, and I sat through it, and I was kind of nearly in tears by the end of it. This film hit me such a different way because I didn't have that expectation of what I thought the film was going to be. And so, yeah, definitely, there's movies out there, if they're getting good recommendations and it didn't agree with you first time, maybe give it another go. If you're a film fan, try it out.
I mean, yeah, this is Ethan Hawke and Uma
Mm,
Thurman, and Jude
yeah,
Law. I mean, it's got a hell of a cast.
it's
Um,
incredible.
Genetic selection. Okay. I mean, I remember when the movie came out.
Hmm.
I assume I saw it because I was going all the time, but I don't remember this movie. Um,
Yeah,
hey, I'll take
I
the recommendation. Let's go.
honestly, one of my most favorite films of all time, and one of my only films that isn't in the horror genre that's in my top 10.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Love that. Yeah, I will give it a go back and check it out. I
yeah.
love Ethan Hawke, so he has one of my
Great in
favorite
this.
time travel movies called Predestination.
Great movie.
Yeah,
Really good.
it's
Surprising. Yeah.
it's surprisingly good. It's one of the best time travel movies to ever be made, in my opinion. I think what it suffers from is bad makeup. And
Right.
people will watch the movie and they'll be like, "What's up with that mustache?" And you'll be like, "Don't just watch the movie. Don't worry about the mustaches. Don't worry about the bad beards. Like
Right.
it will all make sense later." And it does come into a way that you're like, "This is awesome," but that was a terrible fake mustache.
Yeah, yeah. It's just that film flew under the radar. I don't remember it being talked about or hyped about in any way, and
No,
I just caught it on a streaming somewhere, I think. And I was like, "How has a movie that good not been mentioned before? Like, how? Yeah, what happened?"
we there. Ever since streaming came out, we're in this weird generation and time period where nobody knows how to market anymore. I
Mm,
actively will do anything not to see an ad.
right.
I avoid ads at all costs. I don't want to be advertised to. I don't want to hear about mops. I don't want to hear about prescription medication. I don't want to hear about a dating app. What you miss out in that, though, is ads for movies. We don't see trailers unless we seek them out, unless it's on our algorithm. And even then, it's in vertical in a short, less than a minute snippet. And we don't see advertisements for interesting films. This movie, Pixar's latest film, Elio, bombed. Nobody saw it. And then the people who did see it were like, it was awesome. And then everybody says, well, why didn't they market it to us? Well, they did. Just nobody knows how to market anymore. Nobody knows how to reach us when all we see is phones and stuff.
I think really it's unfortunately the TikTokification of marketing now, because it's, again, I'm with you guys. I never watch trailers for films anymore, just because I think it's just because they're like, oh, teenagers' attention spans are so short. We got to show the whole movie in the trailer. Yeah. And it's just after a while we got used to it. And what changed for me was Barbarian in 2022 because the marketing, and then 2 years later, Longlegs last year, because the marketing for both of those films were very vague. They showed very little, gave away very little plot detail. It was just kind of like, go to the movie and see it and just find out for yourself what it is. Right. And that really changed for me, where now I just want to go see anything. I want to go, like anything I go see, I want to see it go in blind as possible, knowing as nothing. It actually gets to a point now where I try to show up to the film. Like when I go to the films, I try to show up as late as possible. Like
don't see any trailers.
If there's a trailer for a film I really want to see, I usually just walk out and will just kind of go on my phone, play games on my phone until I hear the trailer's done for like 3 minutes.
right. And I would say for movie fans, like try and seek out those films that aren't getting all of that press out there, because we've just been marketing our film, A Cursed Man, and it's been really difficult. Like the marketing budgets of these movies, we know now they're twice the budget of the film sometimes. And so you just can't get a look in. And we recently just found out that we were, our film was not being found in a lot of the new releases on Amazon and Apple. It wasn't showing up in the charts in places. And what we found now is that when we started paying for advertising on those platforms, then we were charting. But when we stopped paying for advertising, even though we were suddenly getting more views, we weren't in the charts. So it's not an authentic chart. I don't know if I should be saying this. I know Amazon's going to try and shut me down now, but
blacklisting you, yeah,
right. But the thing is, so those people who are paying for advertising on those platforms are charting better than those that aren't. So indie films are not getting a look in. And that's changed since my previous film came out 4 years ago, where my Russia documentary was just landing on all these new release carousels. Our most recent film has way more buzz, way more interest, way more press, is not landing on those platforms, on those carousels. And so, indie films are just getting screwed over right now. So, you do. So on the one hand, you don't want to like see the ads and stuff, but on the other hand, you got to look out for them. And to that note, and the TikTok of it, we just had our biggest sales week nearly 2.5 months after release, because one influencer found the film and she really loved it and she shared it. And shout out to @thatdocumentarygirl on Insta and TikTok, because she gave us a review and was like, hey, this film's sick, we love it. And like all of a sudden everyone started finding our film. So awesome. And we were trying to pay to do that, but you can't compete with these big movies. So
well, I think people forget you control your algorithm. What's presented to you is a best guess by a machine, but at the end of the day, what you engage with and what you seek out, if you are like, if you make the active choice to seek out, hey, what independent films are coming out, what independent documentaries are coming out, your algorithm will start feeding that to you. And it's an active choice though, because they're not going to do it because, like you said, if you're not paying for it, if you're not paying tens of thousands of dollars into a advertising, gatekeeping scheme, I'll call it what it is.
Yeah.
It's gatekeeping, and the algorithm. You have to actively be aware of that when you're searching for movies, and documentaries. I don't have to tell you, are a very hard genre to
Mm.
get off the ground. Period. I love a good documentary, and to we live in a time where a lot of people put out a lot of trash documentaries. Their entire networks. I'm looking at you of ID Discovery that are just based on trashy documentaries, docudramas, docuseries that they're not doing the research. They're not putting heart into it. They're just doing bad recreations and dragging out a story that can be told in 5 minutes into an hour.
Right.
And so I encourage people to look for real documentarians and real documentaries and watch them. For people, we're going to break out of horror for a quick second, but Liam, you can plug your own, but are there documentaries that you recommend to people that are some of your favorites?
Wow. Yeah, you know what? That's caught me on the spot. As a
Sorry.
documentarian filmmaking, I should no, I should have a long list,
I,
right? But
well, you
I,
don't have to, because I
yeah,
can give you one of my all time favorites
mm,
is a thin blue. It's called The Thin Blue Line, and it is a documentary about
yeah.
police corruption, and it's a phenomenal documentary that I watched, and I thought it was phenomenal. Another one that I love is Tickled, which is the dark
Oh,
world of
so good.
tickling. Yeah, the dark world
Yes,
of
so
tickling
good.
videos. A guy finds a creepy video online that he's kind of like, this is weird. What's going on? And it's just a guy being tickled, and he's like, I'm going to investigate, and it gets darker and darker and darker and totally.
Dude, yeah, the people behind the tickled videos like go after the host and try and track him down and lawsuits, and it gets really dark. And that's
Yeah,
such a well made. That's a great documentary. Yeah, there's a difference between, and I try and sort of say there's a difference between a documentary, a film, and television, and I think some people don't recognize it, and I think sometimes people don't want to pay for documentary because they think of it as television,
yeah,
and that's the Discovery ID shows and stuff. But there's a film. There's so many great ones. There's a film called The Imposter, came out probably about 10 years ago now. And that's about this family that lost their child. And then all of a sudden, this child calls up from Spain somewhere and says, "Hey, I've been found. I've been living on the streets of Spain." So he comes and joins the family, and they're all like, "Oh, he looks different. It's 10 years later, and he's grown up." And is he or isn't he the real child? This is the story, and it crafts a story so incredibly well, and that's the difference between a documentary film and television. And I think that I'm trying to make films, real stories, and that's what I love. And and we're hoping that people will pay for and rent documentary films, but getting people to understand the difference between that film and television
yeah.
is a thing. But
It's a difference between trying to fill content that is
mm,
sort of on the border cross sections of reality television and true crime or something like that, and a artist, a storyteller who is looking to explore and expand their knowledge on a subject by bringing that experience to the viewers. Another one that I love is called Tabloid, a
mm.
phenomenally well done documentary about a two perspectives of one story. One guy says, "I was kidnapped by a crazy lady," and the lady says, "Oh no, he's my boyfriend," and it's so wild. It's such a wild doc. But
Dude,
I love them, and I hats off to people like you who make that their life work, because it is you're expanding knowledge and exploring stories that don't get told as often, and that is it's important work. So to all of our listeners out there, while you're watching some of the horror movies that we talked about, take time and pick up a doc, go watch a
yeah,
documentary, and find stories that you've never heard before, but look it up first, so that you're making sure you're getting high quality good content. And Accursed Man is on that list for me as well now, because I
fantastic.
honestly, when I will be 100% transparent, when I first saw it, I was like, I hope this isn't some ID Discovery crap, and it
Right.
was. It was done with a respect and a quality that broke my expectations and really won me over. So hats off, man! Really, really did appreciate it and enjoyed this film.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, thanks so much. I mean, especially reaching out to horror fans, this is huge for me. I really appreciate the people that like the horror world but can see that in this documentary too. And I'm stoked. I'm stoked you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, thanks for checking it out.
Yeah. Any last movies we got to add to the list before we sign off? Chase, do you have anything left over?
Yes, I do. It
Yeah,
follows from 2014, Sexually
Yes.
Transmitted Curse.
Yes.
Great film.
Great
So
film.
good.
If you guys, sorry.
So no, that's a great one. I mean, that's one of those again. Walked out of the. Yeah, I tell when I can really love a film when I walk out of the theater and I feel jealous because I didn't make it. And so that was one of those movies.
The Substance made me feel that way. I was like, man, I wanted to work on that. Would have been so cool.
Yeah.
Yes. If you guys are into jump scares, I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's such a cheap thrill. But if done right, a jump scare can be great. And a movie that has a bunch of actually solidly crafted good jump scares is a movie called Satan's Slaves. It's an Indonesian film about curses and about the devil and about black magic, but it has some incredible crafted scares that I think some people are like, oh, that's cheap. And I'm like, nah, they got you good. It's as good as the jump scare in why am I blanking? The women in a cave.
The Descent.
The Descent has one of the best
so
jump
good.
scares in all history, and Satan's Slave has multiple times in that movie where it gets you good. The ringing of a bell will never be the same after you see that movie. Indonesian film. It's on Shudder. Fantastic curse black magic stuff going on in that movie. I love it. You guys, I highly recommend
Amazing.
that.
Amazing. I remember I saw a film recently, and I could be wrong on this, but it's a Japanese cursed film. I can't believe I didn't put it top of my list actually. Really good. I think it's called Incantation. I think that's correct, and maybe not, but it's a film about
2022.
Yeah, that sounds right. Really good. Found footage again, but authentic. It makes sense why they're making it in this kind of way. That film blew me away. Again, that was another film I thought. I mean, in fact, when I watched that film, I thought I can see this being remade in the US at some point because it's that good. It has that vibe. So yeah, that just popped back into my mind just now, and I'm excited I remembered.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know this movie, so I'm gonna throw this on my watch list right now.
Yeah.
Guys, watch me do it live. Pow, on the watch list.
Boom. Yeah.
Super exciting. Liam, thank you so much for coming on. We'd love to have you back anytime you want to promote your next film or talk horror movies because it's your stuff.
Awesome.
So that is always
Awesome.
even if your next doc is not a horror movie, come back, give it a plug, and then we can find some awesome horror to tie into it because that's what we're good at.
I would love to.
Yeah, plugs.
Heck, even it's about gardening. We can find some garden horror films.
I think we could find a way to make it scary for you.
Killer gnomes. Yeah.
Oh, we know. So any plugs that you have, where can people follow you? Plug the film, plug what you got going on next. What's your socials? Give us all the plugs, man.
Thank you. Yeah. So the film is available to rent or buy on Amazon or Apple TV. And it's A Cursed Man. So yeah, you can go find it out. If you want to find more out about, there's a few behind the scenes clips and things on our Instagram. That's A Cursed Man _film on Insta, but you can type that in, you'll find it. And I have my own Instagram up there as well. Liam Legue is my name, and that's on Instagram. So yeah, you can find me. And yeah, as to what's next, it's kind of a bit tricky. I've got like a suite of ideas, but which you shake them around, see which one comes out. I do have another dark documentary in mind. I have a story that I've been wanting to tell for about 10-15 years now. It's been something, but it's been really difficult to get off the ground. It's based in the UK. It's a true story, and it is dark, really dark. So yeah, I'm excited, but that one's going to cost a bit of money. So if there's any crazy wealthy investors out there listening right now that want to call me up, go ahead. Right. But we'll see. We'll get there eventually.
Well, I hope you get a boost from our listeners. And yeah, go see A Cursed Man. It's on, as mentioned, Amazon Prime and Apple TV, Apple. Got to give away some blood coin. The word this week, curse, obviously. Why not? go to our Discord, open up a ticket, type in the word curse, get yourself some blood coin. And Chase plugs, you know what it is?
Yeah. First of all, Liam, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you. I love the documentary, and come back anytime.
Amazing.
So first of all, buy or rent A Cursed Man on Prime Video or Apple TV. You can see me here every Saturday with Aaron on Half Hour of Horror, and you can follow me on Instagram, Letterboxd, X, and Blue Sky at OHChase, and on TikTok at OHChase_.
And then, of course, here, Half Hour of Horror on Saturdays, and then my other show, the Launchpad Podcast, every other Wednesday. You're going to find me in San Diego next month. I'll be at San Diego Comic-Con with the Launchpad Podcast. We are doing our 2 panels. One of them is Ghostface's Killer Trivia, where the voice of Ghostface himself calls in to the Comic-Con and delivers some horrifying horror movie trivia. So if you are there, come join us. Both of our panels will be Friday night, but Ghostface Killer Trivia is one of the most fun things ever. So come out, check it out. And of course, watch horror movies, watch good documentaries. And until next time, this has been the Half Hour of Horror. We're out.